creativesmoothie.com. Boost your creativity.
The lion roars, dark and menacing, like thunder. The room goes pitch black. After a moment of silence, your eyes open on your target. He's walking forward, briskly. He doesn't sense you. Slowly, patiently, get him in your sight. Suddenly, he spins towards you, bang, and fires right between your eyes. It's a new year and a new beginning, and as Jennifer mentioned, everybody wants to start off with a bang. Am I right? Yeah. The same is true for our presentations and our communications. Life is simply too short for slow starts. A study last year by Microsoft found that our attention spans have been declining rapidly since the year 2000. In the year 2000, our attention span was 12 seconds. In the year 2015, it dropped to 8 seconds, less than the attention span of a goldfish. A goldfish has a longer focus, has the ability to focus longer than we do. So suffice it to say, when it comes to the genesis of our presentations, of our communications, whether it is a speech, whether it is a group email that you're sending to a lot of people, whether it is a workshop like this, any kind of communications that have an audience needs to start with a bang. Now, typically, in Toastmasters, we learn that there are a few tricks or tactics that we use to start speeches. Can anyone give me a quick one that comes to mind? How do you typically start your speech?
Start with a quote.
Start with a quote. We start today with a quote from Einstein. One more? Questions. Start with a question, get people engaged. Sure. Some people say, start with a very powerful statement, a stat. What if, when it came to starting with a bang, starting our communications, we tried to think a little bit more about the emotions that we are trying to create in our audience? What is the emotional impact that we want to have with our beginnings? What do you want people to feel at the beginning of your presentation? And then think about what are some specific strategies that we can use to create that impact in our audience. That's what we're going to talk about today. Sound good? Yeah. All right, thanks. I like Jennifer. So for inspiration, we're going to look at the beginning of a film series that is famous for starting with a bang. Any guesses? Off the top of your head? Film series.
James Bond?
James Bond.
Yes, I like this guy. James Bond. So each of the 24 James Bond films are famous for starting off with a unique pre-title sequence. Before you even see the title of the movie, there's a beginning. And in most cases, it starts with a bang. So today we're going to look at the beginning of one of my favorite James Bond films. It is called From Russia with Love. It's from the 60s, so it's a bit of a throwback. And what I want you guys to do is, as we're watching the clip, think about the emotions that you're feeling. Maybe write down one or two words, whether it's, curious, or I'm afraid, or I'm surprised. And we'll talk about those emotions afterwards. Good?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, can I kill the lights? Jennifer, did you bring popcorn?
No.
Exactly 1 minute 52 seconds. That's excellent.
So that was the beginning. Get the lights. Actually, leave it off. Leave it off. Any thoughts? Brian? Emotions that you felt?
Suspenseful, and at the end kind of curious as to what's going on. Especially when he's dying, like you don't expect to see like James Bond dying, so you're just like, what the heck?
You haven't seen this before, have you?
I have, but a really long time ago. But yeah, that's just what I was thinking.
Why suspenseful?
Because it's kind of like they're both tiptoeing around. You don't really know what's going on. Nothing's been introduced yet. So it just really grabs you in because you want to know what's going on with each other.
Okay. Anyone else feel curious, like Brian?
Yeah.
Scott? Why?
Same reasons as Brian.
So it's a bit of a mystery. You didn't really know what was happening.
Yeah, and
it's very dark.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it as well. I can't honestly remember what happened next. So yeah, it's got the hook into you, and it starts off with that kind of, you're anxious to see what's happening, and then the curiosity factor takes over.
Jillian, you're at the edge of your seat.
You took the words from my mouth. It's
Okay.
just it's drawn your attention, and you're just so eager to know what's going to happen next. So you're just waiting for the next scene.
Was there something specific, like a moment that really got your attention?
Yes, it did. What took me by surprise was that he actually, the villain actually managed to choke him, which
Okay.
is a surprise beginning.
Bit of a
for-
twist.
Yeah, for James Bond. So I think it makes you wonder what's going to happen next now that he's already, right in the first scene, he seems to have been overcome.
Wow. But obviously not by the end of it, right?
That's right.
What about someone from this side? Our guest.
The first word I wrote was ominous, as
Okay.
they're kind of skulking around in the dark, and you sense there's some kind of danger. Like everyone else, there was a bit of a surprise because you expect James Bond to not only come out on top, but look really cool when he does it.
Mm.
And he misses that first shot and gets strangled. So a bit of worry arose at that point. I wasn't sure where it was going to go, and then certainly excitement and surprise when the mask was
Wouldn't be much of a movie if he just died.
No, not
in 2 minutes. Tell us a little bit about what you meant by ominous.
Ominous. So this foreboding feeling, this feeling that something negative is going to happen, something dark is about to happen. That's essentially it.
Good.
That
So
sense.
I love it. Ominous, darkness. There's some details in there that you want to know a little bit more about. You mentioned you were curious. So a lot of great emotions. Let's think about some strategies now. For us, when we're speakers, we want to create the same emotions at the beginning of our presentations. We want people to be curious. We want them to feel suspense. We want them to feel that there's a little bit of intrigue and mystery that we have to share with people. Strategies that we can use, taking inspiration from the scene that we just saw. One might be to be visceral in our beginnings. Remember the gun barrel sequence that you saw right at the beginning? Immediately, you're getting shot at within the first 8 seconds of the film. It puts you right in the middle of the action. There's blood falling down the screen. Even the music at the beginning of a Bond film, dun-dun, dun-dun, really captures your attention. Being visceral is all about punching people in the gut within that first 8-second window before you lose their attention. Examples of specific ways that you can be visceral in your presentations. A few of you mentioned at the beginning. You can start off with a provocative statement. So a phrase, it could be a quote, it could be a stat, it could be a statement that you've created that really punches people in the gut. That's your gun barrel sequence at the beginning of your speech. You can start at the point of action and drama. So instead of starting at the beginning of this story, start at the point that is and includes action and drama between either yourself, your characters, the facts that you want to share with people. Start where there's a lot of intensity and suspense. And lastly, put your audience in the story. Just like the gun barrel puts you in the sights of this killer tracking James Bond. Try and include your audience as much as possible. Use the words you. Make them feel like what you're saying applies to them. Make them feel it. So an example of being visceral. You can start off your speech by saying, did you know that every time you eat a burger, you are killing people, thousands of people, all over the world? So that's an example. It's a provocative statement. I'm talking right to you. There's a little bit of drama because they use the word killing. So being visceral. Second strategy for starting with a bang. Be intriguing. Many of you guys mentioned the suspense, the curiosity. Jillian Scott in the back mentioned that you wanted to know more, you were intrigued. Be intriguing with your introductions. Add some mystery. Invite people to think and explore and ask questions in their own mind. Why are you saying this? What does he mean? Who was this guy? There wasn't a lot of dialogue in this beginning. There was no explanation for what was happening, and yet you were still intrigued. There was enough in there to get you invested in the story. Some specific ways to do this in your beginnings. Again, make people think. If being visceral is about making people feel like they've got punched in the gut, being intriguing is about making people think, asking them to use their imagination. Use detail sparingly. Don't give it all away at the beginning. Just tell us exactly what we need to know to be intrigued. Save the rest until later. And some wow moments. Have a few punctuations. Those moments when the mask got taken off of Bond, the moment when Bond got killed. Those were all punctuations that built intrigue. Lastly, be a tease. The beginning is not the ending of your speech. It's just a tease for what's to come. Being a tease is all about leaving people feeling unfulfilled, leaving them wanting more. A lot of you guys mentioned you wanted to see more. So a couple ways to do that. Try ending with a question instead of starting with a question. Leave people thinking. End at the most interesting points of your story. Just when things get really juicy and interesting, move on to the beginning of your speech. And lastly, try not ending at all. You don't always have to have a transition between your introduction and your speech. Get people's attention, get them invested, move on to the beginning of your speech. So I want to spend the last few moments that we have getting some examples from someone here who's working on a speech that they're giving later this month. Anybody working on something right now you want to share? Yuan, what are you working on?
I'm working on a speech number 3 for the end of the month. And I'm thinking it's going to be titled Entrepreneurship 101 for Mompreneurs.
Mompreneurs? And what's the gist of
The gist
your
would
message?
be, for example, if you're talking to a friend or a spouse who decides that she's not going to go back to work after her mat leave because she's going to start her own business because it offers more flexibility.
Right.
Here's a guide to you to use 3 questions you should ask your friend
Right.
to give a lot more thought to her business concept
Right.
and to what she's really committing to before actually saying, I'm not going back to work. So that's the
Right.
gist of my speech.
So, any ideas of how you can start off a speech about entrepreneurship with a provocative statement, something that can really jar us into listening to you?
So based on this, I was thinking, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, what if your spouse announced to you, I'm going to quit my job and start my own small business? Does that not elicit some kind of emotional response to you? How are you going to help your spouse or your friend or your family member when they come to you and announce that they make this life-changing decision? Here's my guide to you.
Love it. So, starting off, forget even fellow Toastmasters and guests, just say it. How would you feel? Walked home tonight. When you opened the door, your spouse was standing there, drenched in sweat, saying, honey, I'm quitting my job tonight, and I'm starting my own business. Like, that's a way I love that you brought that question of the fear that you brought into that, starting off with a bang, making your audience feel like they're afraid, putting them in a situation, asking, how would you feel if your spouse said that? How would you feel if your kid said that I'm quitting school to start my own app company? Any ways that you would be a tease at the end of that, your introduction, before you get into the information that you're going to share? All right, I have one for you.
Okay.
It's based on what you said. You can end the introduction by teasing people and saying, let me tell you this. The best advice you can give anyone related to entrepreneurship, whether it's yourself or your spouse, is stop! Stop! And today I'm going to share why that is and what you can say to them after you say stop. So find an interesting point. You can end that introduction, really tease people about the advice that you're about to give them. Can we get a hand for... So I hope you guys enjoyed this workshop. I hope from now on you're going to remember that goldfish. Your audience is like a goldfish. Find ways to start with a bang. Be visceral. Have your own gun barrel sequence at the beginning of your speech. Be intriguing. Add some mystery. And be a tease. Leave it unfulfilled. Leave them wanting more. Hope you can all start your new year with a bang.
Featuring music mixed by DJ Corey Dawkins. For more, visit djcorey.dawkins.com.